And good evening. We begin tonight with that breaking news and the new details still coming in. The husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi brutally attacked in the couple's San Francisco home by a man wielding a hammer. At this hour, he is now out of surgery to repair his fractured skull and is expected to recover. The horrifying attack beginning at 2:27 a.m. A man breaking into the Pelosi's home. You can see right there through their back door, all of it shattered. The assailant shouting, "Where is Nancy?" clearly looking for the Speaker of the House. Pelosi's 82-year-old husband, Paul, home alone at the time. The intruder beating him over the head with a hammer, then attempting to tie him up. Police arriving to find the two men struggling for control of that hammer. The attacker telling them, quote, "We are waiting for Nancy." The Speaker, who has a personal security detail, was in Washington, D.C. last night. She has since rushed to be by her husband's side. The couple married for nearly 60 years. The FBI, they're on the scene. The suspect, a 42-year-old man now in custody, charged with attempted murder. Authorities combing through social media to determine a motive in this horrific attack. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer is in San Francisco live for us tonight. Miguel?
Tom, good evening. The Pelosi home, the brick one you see over my shoulder, remains cordoned off tonight. Local police and the FBI remain on scene. They're still collecting evidence. Of course, the big question tonight, what is the motive?
When the hammer-wielding intruder broke into the home owned by Nancy and Paul Pelosi, a source briefed on the investigation says he shouted, "Where is Nancy? Where is Nancy?" With the Speaker of the House in Washington, D.C., her husband Paul, home alone, was severely beaten. A Pelosi family member tells NBC News the suspect tried to tie Paul Pelosi up. He was hit in the head several times with a hammer, and it was Paul Pelosi who called 911. The intruder telling police as they arrived, "We are waiting for Nancy."
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it.
The 82-year-old, married to the Speaker for 59 years, rushed to a nearby hospital and underwent emergency surgery after the savage attack at 2:27 a.m.
Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him, took him into custody. The motive for this attack is still being determined.
Breaking into the couple's Tony Hillside home, their glass door shattered, police say David DePepe has been booked on several felonies, including attempted homicide. Paul Pelosi arrived at Zuckerberg San Francisco General, where he's suffering from blunt force trauma. A spokesperson for the Speaker of the House says Mr. Pelosi underwent successful surgery to repair a skull fracture and serious injuries to his right arm and hands. His doctors expect a full recovery.
I pray for Paul's recovery. This is tragic. Somebody literally broke into their home saying, "Where's Nancy?"
With the FBI, SFPD, and Capitol Police investigating, Nancy Pelosi has been the target of credible threats before. The Speaker has a protective security detail. Her husband does not.
When Speaker Pelosi is home here in San Francisco, residents say the area is crawling with security. This multi-million-dollar neighborhood shaken by the bloody attack.
I really don't know what to say because it's just so sad and frustrating.
Just days before the midterm elections, the president and lawmakers on both sides of the political aisle expressing outrage and extending their support to the Pelosis. Tonight, the Speaker of the House, the intended target, rushing to be near her husband as he begins his recovery.
All right, Miguel joins us again now live from outside that scene in San Francisco. So, Miguel, let's start with Paul Pelosi, 82 years old. He had to undergo brain surgery. Do we know how long he's going to be hospitalized for?
Well, Tom, it's a good question, and we don't yet have a clear answer. All of the medical information is coming from the Speaker of the House, who only released that short statement a short time ago. We do know, as you mentioned, that he had surgery earlier today, so one would expect that he would be hospitalized for some time. But again, the Speaker of the House in that statement saying he will make a full recovery, Tom.
So we have a name and an age on the suspect. Do we know anything else?
Yeah, the 42-year-old suspect lives in Berkeley, California, which is right over the bridge from San Francisco. It's close by. NBC News has done a deep dive into his digital footprint. He's expressed extremist views with mixed ideology online. And of course, police are searching that digital footprint to see if there could be a motive online, Tom.
And finally, Miguel, I know you explained this there in your stand-up in the piece, but explain more to our viewers, because they might be surprised how this man appears to so easily have gotten into the Pelosi home. When the speaker's there, there's a ton of security, but it appears when she's not, there isn't.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. The Speaker of the House does have extensive security with her, typically 24 hours a day. When she's here in San Francisco, local residents say it's obvious that she's home because this area is crawling with security. There's usually up and down the block here. That was not the case here last night, so local neighbors in this area said it was clear to them that Nancy Pelosi was not in town, but her husband does not have that security detail. Obviously, Tom, he's not a member of Congress, so he wouldn't have that detail.
Miguel Almaguer leading us off tonight. For more on that headline and, of course, a look ahead at the midterms, I want to bring in NBC News political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Chuck, you know, we're going to have you on the show to talk about the midterms, and this, of course, happened to the husband of Nancy Pelosi. I wanted to ask you, when you think about what happened today, and you also think about what happened January 6th, and you think about what happened in 2017 when the Republican congressmen were fired upon while practicing for a baseball game, are things getting worse? And I have full perspective of what happened in the 1960s and the real assassinations that happened then. But are things getting worse?
Well, here's the situation. Like, is the rhetoric worse? We could probably sit here and make a case that it is, but you could make that on the margins, and we could go back. There's been violent rhetoric in our politics. You know, there's plenty of examples in the 1850s and in the 1820s. So what is different is the amplification of it, right, on social media. I really think if you look at the last 10 years versus the previous 50, right, that you do see the difference. What's different from all of those other times? It is the social media and the fact that that basically since the era of Donald Trump has given a permission slip to, you know, personalize everything, delegitimize, dehumanize all of these things. So, look, I look at what happened today, unfortunately, as inevitable. We've been getting to this moment. I mean, you know, we put together a list on Meet the Press Now earlier today, Tom, that showed just since Memorial Day this year, there was somebody who was charged with threatening Dr. Fauci. There was the Republican candidate for governor was attacked with a knife outside his home in New York. You've got what happened recently with Eric Swalwell, the congressman, who somebody was convicted today for threatening that congressman on the day that Paul Pelosi. So this is increasing in numbers because if you look at the political conversations that are being had, particularly online, it's very apocalyptic rhetoric. And while 95% of the public sees the rhetoric for what it is, that it maybe doesn't have as much meaning, for somebody who's got other mental problems, it could be a trigger.
Yeah, we're going to dig a little deeper into this in our next segment on Twitter and Elon Musk taking over. I do want to turn now, though, to the midterms. Senator Chuck Schumer was heard on a hot mic Thursday. Yesterday, our viewers heard about his optimism about Pennsylvania, but there was another part of that clip as well about Georgia. Here it is. Kudos to our audio team that was able to decipher what they were saying there. That reminded me of that John Travolta film. What do you think about what Schumer had to say? Do you think Democrats are in trouble there in Georgia?
Well, one thing I will say in my history of covering Chuck Schumer is the last thing he heard on the phone's the next thing he's going to say. So sometimes he's not the most reliable narrator. That said, you know, when he says going down, he could mean it's going down in the polls, but he's still ahead or not. I mean, again, I go back to my own experiences. He's a frantic guy. He's always talking to people, and he will literally, the next thing out of his mouth will be the last thing he heard. So take all that into account. But the fact is, the way I judge a campaign about whether they're panicking or not is I don't watch what they say, I watch what they do. And you know what Democrats have been doing over the last 48 hours, Tom? They have been re-upping and doing new ads that just reanimate every personal character flaw that Herschel Walker, that has been exposed, whether it's the accusation that he paid for abortions, the holding a gun to the head. My point is, the fact that they're closing with such a negative campaign tells me Walker is on the move and they're nervous. If you're closing super negative in the last week of a campaign, you're worried you're losing.
The race tightening, I do want to shift now to Pennsylvania, and so much of this week was about Pennsylvania. We're still seeing the fallout from that debate there. How is the race right now between Dr. Oz and Fetterman? And I have to ask you, I mean, you know, I know you've covered politics a long time. I've covered politics a long time. I don't know if I've ever seen a dynamic like this with that debate. In hindsight now, do you think it was still the right move for Democrats to let Fetterman debate?
No, I think it was a tactical mistake because it gave Mehmet Oz an entire hour to essentially soften his image. And while he did, I think, step in it with that local political leader line on abortion that the Fetterman campaign's trying to exploit, you know, Fetterman did not have the ability that you would normally have in a debate to try to corner an opponent and all of this stuff. So it ended up being, I think, they gave Mehmet Oz essentially a free pass for an hour. So I do think they didn't think this through enough on that front. And now it may be that they just weren't fully honest about what Fetterman could or couldn't do. You know, maybe it was nervousness in the moment. I mean, there's some of these things we just don't know what was taking place behind the scenes on that front. But I'm also a skeptic that we're going to look back and say this debate mattered and decided the race. I'm not saying there aren't voters that may do that way, but all the evidence suggests that people are voting jersey color and that partisanship is the biggest driver of vote than anything else. Now, I have my own measuring stick of whether I will believe the debate mattered. If Fetterman gets the turnout he needs out of Philadelphia, but still loses, then I will believe the debate mattered. But to me, I think his bigger problem is turnout in Philadelphia. That, to me, is the most crucial aspect of this.
Well,
and
it's a problem Democrats had in 2016.
Yeah.
Same problem Democrats had in 2016.
Correct.
Real quick, remind our viewers, do you think we'll know who won that Senate race come Wednesday morning?
Look, if any race in some of these states that's decided by 2 points or less, we're not going to know. We're not going to know for days. It's not going to be hours. It's going to be days. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan did not change their law. All of them had to deal with their absentee ballots later than what was normal in other states, and they're going to have to do the same thing again. So if you remember from 2020, it took 4 days to get Pennsylvania, took days to get Wisconsin and Michigan. The laws haven't changed in those 3 states. It's going to be similar if the race is super close.
All right. Chuck Todd for us. Chuck, we appreciate it. Next to Elon Musk's Twitter takeover, already rocking the tech world, the billionaire completing his purchase of the company for $44 billion after trying to back out this summer. Musk ushering in his era of leadership, sharing a video this week, walking into the Twitter headquarters saying, "Let that sink in." You see what he's holding there. The billionaire celebrating the acquisition by immediately firing 3 of the company's top executives. Take a look, then declaring the bird is freed. Some users already noticing an uptick in slurs and hate speech on the platform. NBC News correspondent Tom Costello has more on the future of the tech giant.
After revolutionizing the space race and electric cars, the world's richest man is now promising a Twitter makeover, renaming his own account Chief Twit and proclaiming the bird is freed. Elon Musk carried a kitchen sink into Twitter HQ this week, tweeting, "Let that sink in." Then fired senior execs once closing the $44 billion deal. For years, Twitter has battled hate speech and disinformation. Today, a raging debate over what Twitter is now and will soon become.
This is a company that's been held hostage by its woke employees, held hostage by its woke users.
I don't think this is about politics. I think this is about safety. I really do. I think people like Ayatollah Khamenei shouldn't be on when they threaten Jews because people end up getting hurt.
Musk calls himself a free speech absolutist, arguing for fewer restrictions and lifting the ban on former President Trump, accused of encouraging violent acts.
I think it was a morally bad decision, to be clear, and foolish in the extreme.
But today, more anonymous neo-Nazi, anti-Semitic, and racist tweets. Musk trying to reassure the advertisers posted, Twitter obviously cannot become a free-for-all hellscape where anything can be said with no consequences.
Ultimately, advertisers are going to be very frustrated and may leave in massive numbers if he doesn't tamp down on this stuff.
Musk now says Twitter will form a content moderation council with diverse viewpoints, and no reinstatements or content decisions will happen before that council convenes. Tom?
All right, we thank Tom for that. Twitter already seeing a rise in hate speech, while Musk acknowledged to advertisers that the platform can't become a, quote, free-for-all hellscape. So what will the company look like? Ben Collins, who covers disinformation, extremism, and the internet for NBC News, is joining us now here on Top Story. But besides that, he's a prolific voice on Twitter, amassing nearly 350,000 followers. You tweet a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Day in, day out.
Yeah.
And you know this platform inside and out.
I do.
And it sounds like you're not optimistic about Elon Musk's Twitter.
Yeah, don't take it from me. Take it from the people inside the company who are horrified by what's already happened, what they expect is going to happen. They got rid of Vijay Gadde, who's the trust and safety head, basically, for the company, immediately, instantly, like within seconds. And she is one of the most trusted people within the company. She was trying to play every side to this. She went on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? And even for doing that, she was immediately fired. So within the company, they are very afraid of what's going to happen. And I understand Elon is saying that he can't make this website unusable to most people. He has to sell ads, right? But his plans for this that he's laid out so far are going to make the website a lot less fun for most regular human beings.
But for most users,
yes,
it's not a lot of people. Elon wants to get to 1 billion.
Yeah.
There's about 240 million around there active users. But what's the percentage? It's like a small percentage puts out 90% of tweets, right?
Yeah, it's like 10%.
So it's a small club.
Yeah.
It's people like you. And I don't say that in a bad way.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, would Twitter become a better place with more people on it?
I don't think that's really the question. It's it depends on.
But Elon says that's his goal.
Right, of course, yeah. Well, what you would need is more language support. You would need more outreach to different parts of the world. You don't need more parts of this country that have already been banned from the platform. And he talks consistently about putting people back on the platform who have already been banned. The very first thing he tweeted today, because he's been spending his day, if you talk to people at Twitter, he's been spending his day in a room talking about content moderation, is how they're going to get people back on the platform that have already been banned. And those people have been banned for a reason, whether it be racial slurs or inciting an insurrection or something like that. There's a reason they were banned from the platform. Those aren't necessarily the people that you want back on there to begin with. If you want to have a healthy environment, you want people who have never heard of it, who have been previously been scared off from it, maybe to start again. You don't want the people who are already abusing it.
So here at NBC News, we have standards and legal, which review all of our stories, make sure what we get on is factual and it's fair.
Yep.
So these boards that Twitter wants to have, it reminds me of the board that Facebook had, which Mark Zuckerberg didn't even listen to. Isn't there a danger in these boards? I mean, are they hiring the right people? Are they training them? I mean, where do they come from?
But we have no idea what his board is going to be made up of or anything like that. Facebook made an earnest effort, but at the end of the day, they have literally millions of adjudicated cases to work through, and they take about 10 every quarter or so. So, I mean, and even then, they're not always listened to, right? So there's no great system for this. But the idea that you can just magically, a guy who sells cars for a living can go in and just magically fix it all by himself without knowing anything about it. I guess it could happen, but it would be incredibly unlikely.
No, but you could also, to play devil's advocate here, you can also tout his business experience. He didn't create Tesla. He went in, made it a better company. Most people, according to the Pew Research Center, on Twitter are left-leaning. Mm-hmm. My question to you is sometimes on Twitter, when you report the truth, but it hurts the left, people can get ganged up on. I call it they can get bullied. You get bullied all the time by people probably all over this space, but also on the right and the far right. You live with this every single day. Would Twitter be a better place, though, if there were more voices and a variety of voices, so it was truly a marketplace of ideas? Or do you think I'm talking about a panacea that'll never exist?
Well, it's not really about more voices. It's how they sort up in your feed or what you see first, right? Twitter is not on a chronological timeline like it was in the past. The stuff that makes it at the top is the most controversial stuff. And the most controversial stuff has the most arguments.
So you think Twitter is creating its own problems?
Yes, of course. Algorithmically, it has created a lot of its own problems. But that's the issue, is that there's the friction there doesn't make sense. You could like something to remember it or just to note that you saw it. You could respond to it because you hate it. and that would still push it to the top.
What's the thinking, and I know there's some reporting on this, that people on the right have now gained more followers, and people like Barack Obama, AOC, they lost followers. What's going on?
Yeah, I think, it's pretty simple. People saw the writing on the wall, maybe immediately started feeling less safe. The amount of people using racial slurs on the platform has dramatically jumped just overnight. So
and there was a user today repeatedly using the N-word, apparently, right, on Twitter. That's been reported as well. And that person wasn't banned; it wasn't taken.
Oh, yes, many users. In fact, 4chan had effectively a challenge to go on there and just say,
and just spit out as much vile as you can.
Yeah, exactly, because it's effectively allowed now. This guy is in charge of this thing. They still have these old rules, but it's hard to know who's going to enforce them.
Ben, you're a smart guy. You've been successful at Twitter. How do you fix this? Or do you like it like this?
No, I do not. No, this is a horrible website. I think people don't really understand this. It's a bad website. It's a bad thing that shouldn't run the news as is, right?
Which is the other big danger, which we didn't talk about, but right.
That
it inherently influences the news, right?
Yeah, it inherently influences the news. It serves as like an assignment editor, and it should not. Fundamentally, it absolutely should not, just where a lot of news people are. There are ways to fix this, and it involves, creating your own communities and not letting people in those communities. Maybe it looks a little bit more like Wikipedia or Reddit or something like that. But he's not in that space right now. Like, he's been talking about monetization, monetizing tweets, and getting
advertisers.
Yes, and getting the people who were previously kicked off the platform for reasons, by the way, back on the platform. So that is not where I would focus my energy. I would focus my energy more on creating better communities, getting rid of things called brigading. So like if one guy really hates you, he has lots of followers, and then he just storms upon you, maybe limit that in some capacity. That Reddit has done that successfully. They have whole rules against that, right? That's why it's a slightly better website recently in the last couple of years.
But yet not as well known, right?
Yes, exactly.
As Twitter.
Well, it's because people don't complain about it all day long.
Right.
Right? It suffers from the very same problem that its own platform has.
And you're somebody who you admit it's a vile website.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time on there. Is it because you want to fight your fight there? You feel like your voice, your reporting, it needs to be put out there, and it's the fastest way to do it?
Well, there are several reasons. First of all, I have to be on there to follow a lot of the guys that I have to cover. I cover lots of people who manipulate information, right? And there is no more pure information source, unfortunately, than Twitter right now. Like, a lot of people in the world are on that space.
By pure, you mean directly from the writer,
from the
untapped.
Yeah, exactly, right? Whereas on places like Facebook or something, you're not entirely sure what you're going to get, where it's coming from, exactly how it's been filtered for you. So that is you can search it better. It's a better, what we call OSINT tool, like operational intelligence. So open source intelligence. So I have to use it for that reason, just like I have to use 4chan or Reddit or Gab or all these other sites. But functionally, by the way, most people don't use this way. Most people use Twitter to talk about basketball games or, to talk about Real Housewives or something. That's how most people actually use Twitter. The news
or
comes,
to talk politics.
Yeah, exactly. The internecine infighting between people on the far right and the far left trying to jump into conversations, that's a side effect of the website. Instead of trying to lean into that thing, which is what Elon clearly wants to do, maybe try to lean out of it. That would be a thing that could make this website a lot better.
Ben Collins for us. Ben, thank you for that chat. This shocking video filmed from inside a plane as it experienced extreme turbulence, and that LATAM Airlines flight traveling from Chile to Paraguay on a second attempt when it was forced to make an emergency landing. This time, the plane's nose torn off completely. Nayela Charles spoke to a passenger who was on board and has this story.
The flight like a horrifying roller coaster, and the passengers didn't know how it was going to end. Screaming and gripping their seats tightly as a LATAM Paraguay flight violently shook in midair, repeated lightning strikes flashing out of the windows in the night sky.
I will describe it like a nightmare. It was very scary.
Gerardo Empuero was inside returning from a visit to his son. He thought these might be his final moments.
Everybody started screaming, crying.
What did you do?
Pray. I just wanted God to look after my son, you know?
The plane was on its way to Paraguay from Chile. LATAM Airlines saying it was diverted to a Brazilian airport due to poor weather conditions. The plane took off again after the weather improved, but then hitting that terrifying turbulence.
They gave us the instructions, the position we should take for impact, and they used the word impact. Everybody remained in silence. All the screaming, all the crying suddenly stopped.
Finally making an emergency landing in Paraguay.
It was unbelievable. We were at one piece. I really could not believe it.
The storm so severe, the plane's nose torn off. A Paraguayan official told a local radio station the windshield cracked from the hail.
It felt like the plane was being stoned from all over, you know?
That official saying Paraguay's aviation authority is investigating its actions and the airlines. Luckily, no one was injured, according to the airline, but passengers wondering why the plane was allowed to take off again.
What questions do you have?
By now, who is the responsible for taking the decision to come back to Asunción if they had the information saying that the storm was over there?
And Tom, in a statement to us, LATAM did apologize to its passengers and says it's reaching out to provide any necessary support. Gerardo did confirm with us that LATAM has reached out to him, though he says they haven't discussed next steps yet. Tom?
All right, we're back with Top Stories newsfeed and the warning for residents on Hawaii's Big Island. The world's largest active volcano sending signals it may erupt, including a recent spike in earthquakes at the summit. That volcano, which covers more than half the island, last erupted in 1984. However, the island's population has more than doubled since then. Experts say it would take just a few hours for lava to reach homes closest to the volcano. So far, no evacuation orders, though, are in place. All right, now to signs of progress in the fight against cancer. A new report found that deaths from cancer fell among adolescents, young adults, and in every major racial and ethnic group between 2015 and 2019. That's great news. The steepest decrease in lung cancer and melanoma. Experts say this is a result of breakthroughs in testing, treatment, and lifestyle changes. And are you feeling lucky? The Powerball jackpot climbing to an unbelievable $825 million. That's the fifth highest total in history after 36 draws without a winner. You'll have until Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern to buy a ticket, but the odds of winning just 1 in 292 million. Okay, we turn now to the emergency evacuations at a condo in Miami Beach. The oceanfront building deemed structurally unsafe. And it's just about 1 mile away, you may remember, from the condominium in Surfside, which of course collapsed in June of 2021, killing nearly 100 people. Residents at this latest building, which holds 164 units, told last night to vacate immediately. And here's why. Take a look at this. This is a crack in one of the building's main support beams, expanding since an inspection team looked at it 10 months ago. So it's gotten bigger. And extensive deterioration also photographed, look at this, in the building's foundations and in other concrete beams. Engineers believe they support the entire building structure, meaning residents there had to scramble to gather their personal belongings in just a few hours, and they're not happy.
Been here for I don't know what, 10 years. Building's been the same and out of nowhere. And we got an hour to get out. Bro, they gave me 1 hour to get the out of here. Just 1 hour.
All right, repair work is expected to take at least 10 days, but then the building will have to pass another inspection before residents will be allowed back into their homes. Okay, we want to stay in South Florida now, and the latest on a fiery crash on a major highway. Shocking new video shows the moment a firefighter rushed to save his girlfriend from the wreck. The massive blaze, as you can see here, sending multiple people to the hospital. Kim Wine with NBC South Florida has the story.
Escaping with just the clothes on their backs, firefighter Brian Aparicio and his girlfriend Sue Hininyi are seen moments after escaping this fiery crash on I-95 in Atlantic Avenue in Delray Beach. Both severely burned throughout their bodies. Some of Aparicio's scars can be seen all over his arms and hands. Our cameras were rolling as the 27-year-old was airlifted to JMH after spending 2 days at Delray Medical Center.
He looked up, and all he saw was a wall of fire surrounding the vehicle.
The couple was in an Uber getting ready to go on vacation when a crash caused a tanker truck to flip on its side and burst into flames. The couple was behind the truck when the fire spread to their Uber. Aparicio broke through a car window to get out, but realized his girlfriend was still inside.
He said, I cannot let her die.
Officials say he went back, fighting through the smoke and flames to save her, risking his own life.
In my book, he's nothing but a hero, because who else will jump through flames or smoke in order to save somebody else?
The fiery blaze also engulfed Carlos Molina's car.
I almost lost my father, my best friend, literally like my everything.
His daughter, Carla, says the 61-year-old husband and father of 3 has severe burns on his face, neck, hands, torso, and feet.
He's in a lot of pain. He's in that shock that how am I here right now?
She says Molina saw the flames.
He thought, I need to get out. I need to get out.
And tried to swerve around it, but it was too late.
He went into the meeting and he crashed in there, and that's when his car exploded.
Although covered in burns, she's thankful he made it out alive.
Seeing the accident, I thank God that my dad made it through this. My dad is a hero.
An incredible story. We thank Kim and our partners at WTVJ for that. Coming up, a Halloween treat. The young singer and a major fan of NBC's The Voice surprised with a custom costume. You have to see it to believe it. The look, so good, it even caught the attention of one of the show's superstar judges. You're going to love this story. Stay with us. All right, we're back now with the wheelchair makeover just in time for Halloween. One Massachusetts child finding her voice through a unique Halloween costume inspired by the hit NBC show, The Voice.
In Salem, Massachusetts, 11-year-old Savannah Smith's love of music is only matched by her love of Halloween. But finding the perfect adaptive costume can be a challenge. Savannah has Ogden syndrome, an extremely rare genetic condition.
With Ogden syndrome, Savannah has a cerebral palsy, she has epilepsy, she has a heart condition, so she's a pretty complex girl medically.
The Smith family has gotten creative with Halloween costumes in the past, hitting all the notes with this xylophone ensemble, and traveling far from Kansas with this Wizard of Oz-inspired look. But this year, the Smith family wanted to take adaptive costumes to a whole new level. They took inspiration from Savannah's own voice, a programmable button.
Savannah will hit it to say trick or treat, and then she'll hit it again to say thank you, happy Halloween. So we've always tried to give her her own voice as much as we can.
You know who else has big red buttons? Judges on a hit NBC show. So the nonprofit Magic Wheelchair and the build team at SolidWorks teamed up, designing and building a replica of those shiny red chairs from The Voice.
Basically, the way it'll work is they can program the chair to do something, have text come off, play music, play a song, voice output, etc. The lights all over the chair. They can control that. All Savannah has to do is hit the button, and the chair will do that.
And after weeks of hard work, this moment.
3, 2, 1, reveal!
Making these experiences for these families is like everyone's favorite part of the job.
Savannah joining the Salem Haunted Happenings Parade earlier this month. That custom chair even grabbing the attention of a former Voice judge and talk show host.
Kelly here. I just wanted to say that I was really inspired by your story and your love of music, and I'm so glad that you found inspiration in The Voice. I absolutely love seeing Savannah's custom-made voice chair. It looks so good, and you fit right in with me and the other coaches. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you. We'll see you on Monday.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.